welcome to this week's review. This week's review, well, we're looking at a turntable. This is another turntable from Pro-Ject, and the reason I'm going to be looking at this turntable is because it's a sort of cousin to an earlier model I looked at a little while ago, the Pro-Ject Debut EVO. This particular turntable I'm looking at today is the Debut Pro, priced at £699. So it's another release in its debut range of turntables, but Pro-Ject are promising something special for this one. Released amongst the waiting hordes to celebrate Pro-Ject's 30th anniversary, the company has used the opportunity to enter the debut turntable fray once more. As much as I liked Pro-Ject's recently released EVO, another debut design, check out my review of that one up yonder, it looks like the company has spent extra time and energy on this one. And let's see exactly how it spent that time and energy, shall we? By taking a closer look. And welcome to the closer look section of the Pro-Ject Debut Pro turntable. Now, the Debut Pro shares a lot of technology with its lower cost brethren, the Debut EVO. Take the tone arm, for example, which takes the usual 8.6-inch tube and gives the EVO-like carbon tube tone arm a tweak by providing a carbon wrapping over an aluminium core. The EVO example is just a carbon tube. The rear of the tone arm shows an enhanced aluminium collar wrapped in nickel, so it looks nice and shiny. You also get an improved base. The bearing assembly has been enhanced, as has the tracking weight. Inside, the tone arm's electrical shielding has also been improved as well. Let's nip to the other end of that tone arm now, and hanging off that tone arm, which incidentally can be tweaked for both VTA and azimuth, you will find a Picket Pro cartridge. This one is made for Pro-Ject by Audiophile to Pro-Ject's specifications. Now, this cartridge is basically a variant of the Audiophile 2M Red. That is, the 2M Red has been reworked and is priced at the same sort of level, but the sound is rather different. The sound of this particular cartridge offers more Audiophile SPU-like sound output. And what does that mean in performance terms? Well, this one promises smooth mid-range and an elevated insight from the same. But hey, we'll see. The plinth and the subplatter of the Pro is the same as the EVO, as is the motor and the power supply and the pulley. But there's a new toggle switch, a 3-speed control, 78 is included, on the near left-hand corner of the plinth, instead of the EVO's under plinth rocker switch. You get a basic felt mat, and let me say now, this is fine. I much prefer a felt mat over a rubber mat any day of the week. So felt does a good job here, so there's no worries on that score. Yet underneath that felt mat, the platter looks new, and it is. Compared to the EVO's example, the Pro offers a denser aluminium alloy model. It's thicker and better damped than the EVO. Finally, you get the same height adjustable feet here, but with a rather nice nickel plated finish. Now, before we get to the sound quality section, let me talk a little bit about cartridges. in this test, I will be reviewing the turntable as a package, only as a package, and nothing else but a package. When you pay the asking price for this turntable, part of that price is for that cartridge. So that will play a full part in the sound tests. More, the majority of people who buy such a package will not, I repeat, will not change the cartridge at all during its working life. Most people will stick with what they've bought, and they'll stick with the default until they buy a brand new turntable. Now, some of you, used to how hi-fi magazines do things, will be expecting me to use the same cartridge on all of the turntables I'm going to be featuring in the sound tests. Well, that doesn't really make any sense to do that, because each and every turntable that I'll be looking at in this review has its own built-in, bundled, default cartridge. Each of the turntables I'll be looking at is a package, an all-in-one package, sold under a set price with their own cartridge built in. Now, comparing a turntable with other turntables, the only time I would use the same cartridge on all of them is if they all appeared off the shelf without a built-in cartridge design. So if I was to change any of the cartridges in any of these packages, that would constitute an upgrade feature, and that's not what I'm doing here. I'm just reviewing the Debut Pro. If you want me to look at upgrading the Debut Pro in the future as an upgrade feature, something I've already done with the EVO, and I'll put a link up in the corner there so you can see the sort of thing I'm talking about, then sure, I can do an upgrade feature on the Debut Pro. But for now, for this review, I will be comparing packages. That means the turntable, the tone arm, and the cartridge. So let's see what the Debut Pro actually sounds like, shall we? Let's go and have a look at the sound tests. Welcome to the sound tests of the Pro-Ject Debut Pro turntable. And I began my sound tests by grabbing myself a Rega RP3 and playing a track from Eddie Gourmet's Cuatro Vidas and the delightful Spanish language track Rega Tropical, in which he's backed by a trio, the El Trio Los Panchos. So you're looking at Gourmet's lead vocal plus a harmony backing of 3 voices plus Spanish guitar, there's some bass in there, there's some conga drums and secondary percussion. This organic presentation offers a host of information extruding possibilities, but demands care if the turntable isn't to lose control of delicate details. Now, what hit me about the Pro almost immediately was a pair of effects, a pair of first impressions, you might say. First up was the low noise from this turntable. I found myself upping the gain a few notches on my preamp to find the same volume I was using with the Rega. When I got to that point, I found the Pro's mid-range to be super smooth, almost romantic in its approach. There was no grit or harshness in the mid-band at all. So, does that mean that detail was smudged or maybe a bit foggy? No, not at all, but detail arrived at your ears in a fluid stream as opposed to edgy packets. The soundstage was wider and more open, specifically around the stereo image section compared to the RP3. It was slightly sweeter in the upper mids as well. Saying that, there was more insight in the mid-range from the Pro than the RP3. For example, during the relatively quiet bass area of the Spanish guitar, well, lower mid-range, I should really say, I could more easily follow the finger picks, which were delicate quiet and subtle in their presentation. Secondary percussion also had a more effective suite of reverb tails hanging from them, while the lead vocals' sultry, smoky presentation was both musical and, well, a bit sexy. I found secondary percussion here sat in a spacious area, while tonal realism from the same was pretty darned impressive. Bass on this track was solid. In fact, bass is, well, it's a pretty notable feature on all debut turntables, especially for a belt drive deck such as the debut line. Bass is always handled well by this line, but especially so by the Pro in terms of its naturalistic manner, how well it fits in the mix, but also how it still manages to create a firm foundation for the rest of the music. I did test the Pro also with £1,000 worth of Roksan Attessa, expecting the Attessa to be vastly superior at 300 extra pounds, and yes, it was, mostly. The mid-range and treble were just sublime from the Roksan. The sense of realism was quite breathtaking, while the treble response was both fragile but also quite imposing, which is a good thing. The mid-range performance from the Pro couldn't reach those heights, but even so, the Pro was never shamed. Not at all. The Pro can hold its head up high, even with this level of competition. The Pro actually leaves nothing in the groove. No detail is lost here. Sure, the Attessa translates the information in a superior manner, but the Pro, well, it's not that far behind. In terms of bass performance, well, I actually think the Pro has the edge here in terms of mass and how it forms a solid bottom end structure for the mid-range sailing overhead. Again, the difference is not that great because the Roksan produces a well-integrated and impressive bass response of its own, but the Pro, I don't know, the Pro has a little bit extra weight in that lower frequency region. Now, what about the Pro's direct cousin, the Pro-Ject Debut EVO, which is priced around £450. Now, as we've discovered earlier on, the EVO shares many of the same parts as the Pro. How do they compare out of the box? Well, I looked at that in the company of the Who's LP, Who's Next. Now, I've previously described the EVO as the best turntable I've heard under £500, and I'm sticking with that assertion here, out of the box, at any rate. But in this review, the EVO is playing with the big boys, and it shows. And yes, you're paying extra for the privilege, let's not forget that. But even so, the mid-range is detailed on the cheaper EVO, but the Pro, well, it's more relaxed in that presentation. The EVO, in direct comparison, sounds like it's trying too hard to perform. There's a slight tension as it strains and it stretches. Detail is coaxed from the grooves of the Pro, like a shy cat from behind a washing machine. The EVO does a great job, but again, there's a certain lack of confidence here. The EVO tenses its shoulders when it gives you mid-range detail. You'd think that the EVO was looking over its shoulder, not wanting to miss the last bus home, and the Pro knows it has a car waiting for it around the corner, so hey, why worry? The bass performance is there, but it's not quite as confident from the EVO. Pro, on the other hand, is quite effortless in how it goes about the bass business. Now, I repeat, the EVO is an excellent turntable, but it's a £450 turntable. The Pro is a £699 turntable. So please bear that in mind when you're listening to my description here. So how should I conclude the review for the Pro-Ject Debut Pro turntable? In short, under £1,000, the Debut Pro is one of my top 3 turntables currently on sale. The other two are the Funkfirm Get and the Roksan Attessa. Saying that though, both of these other competitors are dearer when fully kitted out. So the Pro actually offers the best sound quality to price ratio at £699. Also, gazing around the Pro's design, it also looks like it could take an upgrade or two. So I'm sure you could enhance the Pro still further when funds allow. The Pro is the best debut turntable I've ever heard from Pro-Ject. It's the pinnacle of the entire range. It's also the best implemented turntable that Pro-Ject has released for some time. And that's it, folks. That's the end of this review. Thank you very much for sticking to the end of this video. I really appreciate your support in terms of this video and also for the channel as a whole. I want to thank you very much for all of your likes and all of your subscribes. And if you haven't yet done that, if you can possibly down there somewhere click the available buttons, I'd be much appreciated. Please check the description below. There's chapter headings down there if you want to navigate around this video. There's also some links for my social media platforms, also my website. You'll find lots of editorial on there you won't find on this channel, and please consider supporting me on my Patreon page. The money from that Patreon page does directly help this channel. It keeps it going, it keeps it moving forward, so have a think about that. There's also some exclusive material over there too, just as a thank you. Now, I'll be back, actually, no, I was going to say the end of next week, but that's not so, is it? Because we've got Tuneful Tuesdays to think about. And Tuneful Tuesdays will begin next week on a Tuesday. What an incredible coincidence. So I will see you there for the first one. I think it's going to be a Masterworks. We'll see. We'll see. I think it'll be a Masterworks though. So check out Tuneful Tuesdays for that. I hope to see you there. Till that time, folks, until Tuneful Tuesday, bye-bye for now.